We might as well get underway to Andy.
Yep, sounds good, mate.
Welcome everybody to Figured's intro for dairy farmers. This webinar is designed for farmers looking at Xero and Figured for the upcoming farming season. What we're seeing at Figured is sector confidence is at record levels, but undermining this is an ability to cash in on those opportunities. You're here today to learn what you should be expecting from your financial management software to help you see these opportunities. Figured and Xero are designed to make managing farm finances easier. Hey everybody, my name's or Andrew Layton, and I look after our corporate farming, accounting and banking partnerships across the South Island, Gisborne and the mighty Hawke's Bay.
Good day, everyone. My name is Andy. Thanks for joining the call today. I'm a partner success manager at Figured, looking after our partnerships in the farming sector.
And today, Andy and I are really stoked to have the pleasure of you attending this webinar for the opportunity to discuss what we're seeing across the sector and why having the right financial management software is critical for your dairy operation. We'll then show you how Figured will work for you as a dairy farmer and discuss frequently asked questions that Andy and I often get asked and how you can get started for the season ahead. Just before we get started, some quick housekeeping. This is a 30-minute webinar. We don't want to take up too much of your time today. Send through any questions at any time by simply going to the Q&A button down the bottom of your screen there, and we'll respond to the questions at the end of this webinar. If we run out a bit of time, we'll send up a bit of a follow-up with answers to those questions along with notes and the recording of today's session to help you make a decision on whether you want to use your own Figured for the season ahead, and also if you want to share that with some other dairy farmers in your area. At Figured, we're in a very unique and privileged position. Obviously mentioned before, we work alongside you as farmers, but also with accountants and banking partners. And that gives us some unique perspective of the sector. And what we're seeing and hearing is obviously that prices, commodity prices are as strong as ever. Okay, there's no doubt with that. But accessing capital is tough. And also we've seen the rising in costs hitting the books a lot more, particularly inflationary effects of operating expenses. So what this is calling out for a need for you guys is a need for accurate and real-time data to make those decisions. And the impact resulting from that, if we aren't able to give you that, guys, that is a delayed ability to be able to seize and undercover opportunities while mitigating those risks and those headwinds that we're seeing, particularly in the regulatory space. Today, we'll give you some insight into why Figured and Xero is now the leading financial management solution for dairy farmers in New Zealand.
Great, thanks, Lex. So I'll now walk you through the software, speaking to how a dairy farmer would use it. I'll touch on a couple of things on the Xero side to start with, and then we'll move over into Figured. So when you first come to Xero, you'll land on the dashboard here. On Xero, you'll have automatic bank transactions importing to Xero each day. And Xero are going to have a go at coding it for you based on bank rules that you can get set up in Xero. You can then go through and reconcile the transactions by clicking OK. So Xero is your cash book, and it works seamlessly with Figured together through an API. So with your actual transactions being coded off in Xero, these transactions are then automatically importing through to Figured each day to give you that real-time data. So Xero is the home of your actuals, whereas Figured is the home of your production, forecasting, and reporting. In Xero, you can also reconcile from your mobile app or at the end of the week or month to handle those transactions in bulk. I've just jumped over into Figured now. So when you first come to Figured, you'll land on the Figured dashboard, which we're looking at now. And on the graphs, you'll see on the dashboard, which quickly outline how you're tracking against your plan. Figured is the only farm financial management software that gives you a true picture because of the real-time data flow that it has with Xero. So you have that ability to plan and run what-if scenarios based on the most accurate, up-to-date data. So you know where you are and how, and have more confidence planning for the future in Figured. I'll just jump over into under operations and trackers. So on the left-hand nav bar, I've just showing you there, this is the home to your production. You can set up as many production trackers as you like, and you're not just limited to the trackers that I've set up on the screen here on this demo farm. So under create a new tracker, there are a number of further options available. Something to note is the livestock trackers all function and work the same. They just have different stock class names. I'll open up one of my dairy cattle trackers, which I've got open here. So Figured has some set stock classes, and you can enable the appropriate stock classes relative to your dairy operation through tracker settings up here. You can quickly import transactions from Xero as well with the click of a button. So Xero has that ability to add quantities and descriptions to those transactions within Xero, and then import these directly into Figured for a streamlined workflow. You can click into where this orange triangle is in detailed view, and down below and the status up here, it's letting you know there are unreconciled transactions sitting there. You can then import from Xero down below, and that'll bring each transaction line through to the tracker, and you can quickly save that transaction there. Now, this is a Xero first workflow. So this will be money hitting or leaving the bank account and being reconciled in Xero first, then importing into Figured. For the farmers that are actively invoicing and creating bills, you do have the flexibility in Figured to create and enter those kill sheet invoices and purchase transactions and post these through to Xero from directly within Figured. So you'd fill out the transaction here, make sure you click post to Xero, and then save transaction. That's automatically going to push that over to Xero to create an invoice or a bill or a spend or receive money transaction, depending on the subscription, Xero subscription you've got. To get next year's plan in place, a quick way to make a start on this is to use our export and import tools within the dairy cattle tracker. So you can simply export out 1 year's actuals and then import these in as forecast transactions. So I've already got some forecast transactions in there to start with here. You can then reforecast on a monthly basis. So this is a really quick way of adjusting your plan for the year ahead. So you'll simply need to head into the monthly tab here. And then if we click into the tracker and scroll down below, you can add new monthly transactions or reforecast those monthly transactions that you've imported into your tracker. And it's important to note that all these transactions within the dairy cattle tracker are then going to pull through to the planning grid, which we'll have a look at after the milk tracker. So here we have a milk tracker set up, and this is a Fonterra milk tracker. We set the milk price so you can quickly update to the latest company milk prices with the click of a button. Just something to note, we do support other milk suppliers as well. So on milk tracker creation, you'll go through and select the appropriate milk supplier for your business. Now, if you're with Fonterra, you can link up the feed from Farm Source. Now, what that means is each month, the production down below here will automatically import into the milk tracker for you. Otherwise, you can just manually key this production into your actuals column here. And with forecasting, so looking for the season ahead, you can then spread production based on your previous year's actuals to quickly build out that plan. So here below, we can see our production's not currently entered in. We can simply click into this KPI section of the milk tracker up the top here. We can use last year's actuals and save, and that's going to build out those that production for the season ahead within the tracker here. So once that saves, all our production will show up down below here. Then those payments are automatically going to calculate based on your milk price that's set in the tracker. Now, depending on your particular farming operation, within the milk tracker, you can set it up as a share milker, a contract milker, or an owner with a share milker or contract milker as well. So the milk tracker has that flexibility within there, and you can also automatically calculate those forecast levies within the tracker too. So you can link up that account. So as I mentioned before, all your production trackers are handled within the trackers themselves. These will then pull through into the planning grid, which I've just opened up now. So here we're looking at actuals for a year, so a full year of actuals. All of these transactions sitting in the planning grid here are pulling through from zero. So with the click of a button in the planning grid, you can view the values in zero, which make up that monthly total here. So here we can see the two transactions which make up that 1480 sitting inside August for animal health minerals. Now, a really quick way to start building out a plan is working with your advisor or your accountant and bringing in last year's actuals, which can be done under tools and import last year's actuals. So similar functionality to within those trackers. That's going to bring through all of your actual transactions from last year in as forecast transactions into the planning grid. You can then make adjustments to the plan directly from within the planning grid. So you can click in, and then if I expand down below here, you can actually copy, spread, or adjust by percentage of value within the planning grid, or simply manually enter a figure directly into the planning grid as well within one of the cells. With the spreading tool down below here, you can use the distribution curve, which is really popular tool to distribute a new value for the season ahead, proportionate to your actuals or your snapshot budget from a previous period. So you could simply enter in a value, select curve, and you can base it off your actuals or one of your snapshot budgets from a previous season. Within the planning grid, you can also set up an automatic interest on overdraft calculator, which will calculate your forecasted overdraft based off your closing cash position within the planning grid. Now, up the top here, we can see snapshots. Once you're happy with a plan, you can take a thing called a snapshot. So snapshots are a snap of your farm's plan at a point in time, and snapshots are editable. So these are your budgets. Now, if you're looking at lending across the next financial year, you'll create that plan within Figured and mark it as your annual plan, which you can do here and within a separate snapshots window. This can be the budget that you've shared out with your banker. So on Figured reports, you can then see how you're tracking with actuals against your snapshot plan. And at any time that you need to make changes to a live forecast within the planning grid, you can also bring in any of your saved snapshots into the planning grid and make those appropriate changes. So there is plenty of flexibility there within the planning grid, being able to re-import there. Have you got anything to add on any of that planning side there, Lates?
Yeah, probably just talking about the workflow for you guys as dairy farmers. Probably the key thing there is that if you're looking to set up your 23 budget out of zero and Figured, what you can do is work with your accountant to create the first iteration. So that's where you create one snapshot. You get some feedback from your accountant, and then you might do a second iteration. prior to sending that off to your raw manager. If you've got some sort of lending sort of need for the season ahead. So the idea there is that you take different iterations as you start to engage different members of your farming team before you finalize that annual plan that you'll work towards as you forecast for the season ahead. So what's really neat, to Andy's point, is it just offers greater flexibility, speed of efficiency based off the actuals from zero to measure real-time data, just to help you get ahead and have a really sort of quick and fast way to do that forecast and build that out quickly. The other thing with reforecasting, again, things always change throughout a season, right? I've got a mate that's a dairy farmer in mid-Canterbury. Last year got smashed with the floods, which we all know about. 70k's worth of fencing got ripped out. So he needed to do some reforecasting based on repairing all that fencing that was ripped out. So what his banker said to him is, let's keep with the original forecast, but let's do some reforecasting based on, repairing those fences. So Andy will show you shortly how we can look at actuals against forecast and a reforecast, i.e. a snapshot, so measure across the three. But great point, Andy. I think it's just about the efficiency of the process and getting the outputs to get the wider farming team around your forecast to ensure that you got the best plan ahead for the season ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Lates. And there's just a question there around will monthly reforecasting overwrite that original budget forecast? So actuals, obviously your actuals coming through from zero, your forecasts are always live, and your snapshots are a snap of what your plan was at that point in time. So if we are within our dairy cattle tracker here and we're in that monthly view, if I do make a change here to change this to, the quantity of 10 and then 7,000, let's say, and save, that's going to update those live forecasts. So those are always live. But if we had taken a snapshot at that point in time when that last year's actuals had been imported into next year's plan within the tracker, that snap will be of that original data that's been imported in. Hopefully that clears up that question. So Figured reports. Figured has financial, production, tracker reports, and your accountant can produce your end of year trading statements out of Figured for tax purposes. So Figured has three-way forecasting, so you can produce those reports that you need for the banker to more easily access that tough to get capital with a strong financial plan in place. I've opened up a few of the reports here, and under each of the reports, there's some additional options. So here we're viewing our 2022 year, and you're not just limited to that season year. You can go in to a custom date range as well. You can view on a monthly and annually. And a popular one is to show those quantities on your P&L, cash flow, and variance report. So if I just zoom in there a little bit for anyone on a laptop screen, we can see here we've sold some beef R1 bulls for the quantity of 35 in July there. You can also compare your actuals and forecasts against that snapshot plan that you've taken with any of within these reports. So down below here, we've got our actuals and forecasts, depending on what we've set that to in the additional options tab up the top. And then the blue line is going to be your snapshot. So when that snap was originally taken of your plan. And here we've got a variance report as well. So under the variance report, there's plenty of options. So I won't talk through all of those, but below you can see that variance percentage and things like budget remaining within here as well. And I've just opened up a production report. So the production report allows you to assess the productivity of your farm right down to each single income or expense item. This can be measured under those additional options on that kilograms of milk solids of production, your hectares, stock units, and peak cows milked as well. And
just to add to that, sorry, Andy. Yeah, so those people that are coming from the likes of a Cash Manager or Farm Focus, economic farm surplus report, very similar. So if you're worried about losing out on that capability, we support that with our production report.
Awesome. Thanks, Lates. Yeah, and at Figured, we're massive on farming collaboration, and to support that goal, we've implemented the ability to save and share reports and provide analysis of that report from within Figured. So under Share Report, you can save any of the reports to Figured, and these will all be within a centralized place. So sitting under the Reports tab, and the value here is that all the messaging is in one place, with everyone on the same page working across that same set of numbers. So you can simply click in, add any comments, and those will be saved within the reports. And then you can also share that report out to anyone within the farming team. Cool. I've just
just something else to add to that. Oh, sorry, mate. Just something else to add to that. We've also got a report back feature too, guys. So, for example, if you've got a set of reports that you need to provide your banker, or the accountant wants to see, or you need to provide to a governance meeting or a management meeting, then what you can do is pile the reports together, put it in a pack, and then share the pack out either on a GST or quarterly basis. So it's quite a handy little feature, especially if you want to speed up that, well, I certainly know I want to, speed up that process of getting all the reports together and then obviously getting your farming team across it. So there's just a couple of examples there. But yeah, thanks for that, Andy.
Awesome. Just moving over into the Scenarios tool now. So again, on the left-hand nav bar, we've got that Scenarios tab. So Figured Scenarios tool lets you plan and analyze different outcomes for your farming operation across multiple years. For farmers looking at making capital changes, our Scenarios tool is best set up to support you with this. Within Scenarios, you can build out a 5-year scenario, for example, which we refer to as a status quo scenario, as I've set one up here. So if nothing changed on farm in the next 5 years, how are you looking financially? A great thing within the Scenarios tool as well is you can click into the 3 dots and you can copy any of scenarios. And that's when you can start to look at those what if situations. So this can be adding things such as a new tractor for next year, and you can simply add a loan against that asset within the Scenarios tool. I'll just open up one of my scenarios, and we've dropped into the proposition here. Now, the proposition tab is where you really build out that scenario. So adding in your income, expenses, assets, and liabilities. This may be looking at impacts of things like increasing your herd size, effects on the milk price, how the increasing fert or fuel costs will affect your bottom line, or even looking into things like buying that neighboring farm and how that will look financially across a 1 to 10 year period. The whole farming team with access to Figured can then go in and view these scenarios and then, basically make more informed decisions. And scenarios also have reports, if I'll scroll to the top, up here, and indicators, so down below. The indicators are basically graphs that provide further visibility around various parts of your scenario's financial position. And under the reports at the top here, we can change over to a profit and loss, a cash flow, a balance sheet, a livestock summary as well. And something I didn't mention at the start is when you are creating a scenario, you can import all of your production trackers and your income and expenses in to build out the start of a scenario, and then copy these across year on year. So to build out a scenario is a really quick process, especially around that status quo scenario, and then looking into those what if situations. Yeah, so all of our scenarios as well can be exported out from within the tool and then shared with the rest of the team, or can be viewed within Figured. The great thing about scenarios is bankers are familiar with the tool, and we've created tools like the scenarios to get that lending application across the line. Basically, our whole goal here at Figured is making that whole production forecasting functionality as efficient as possible within Figured. Awesome. I'll just go up and recap sort of what we've just covered off over that demo there. So it's broken down into these 4 steps here around setup, building out your annual plan, reconciling your actuals and zero, and review, reforecast, and repeat. So the setup, this is a once-off. So make this setup easy and use your accountant. And we do have a list of setup specialists available. So you can see those on our Figured website, or feel free to send our team a message through the green bubble on any Figured page or on the Figured website. Now, building out that annual plan. So save yourself time and build that annual plan out based off the production data and zero financials from the prior year. So that was around within the production trackers. So we walked through that within the milk and exporting and importing within a livestock tracker, so your dairy cattle tracker. And then you can collaborate with your advisors to get their take on your plan for next year. So going in and reforecasting and taking those snapshots. On the zero side, you'll reconcile your transactions as they hit the bank account. So you can be doing this daily or weekly. And with zero, you can file your GST straight out of zero as well. And with that review, reforecast, repeat, you can compare your actuals to your base plan and revise your forecast as needed. So within those reports, we had a look through comparing how you're tracking with your actuals against any of your snapshot plans that you've taken. And just down the bottom there, we've got take control of your business by knowing and owning your numbers. So staying up to date, reforecasting within Figured.
Just before we carry on, guys, I'm just conscious of the time. We've only got a couple minutes left. So what we'll do is we'll finish off the prezo. Any questions that you do here, put in the question and answer box down below. And then what we'll do following this webinar is send you some responses and answers to those questions. So frequently asked questions that Andy, the team and I get often asked from a lot of people considering a move over to Xero and Figured for the season ahead is, why is there 2 software? Well, pretty much what we try and do is we're all about best in breed software. And what that means is Xero gets to focus on what they're really good at, being an outstanding cash book. And I know I'm biased in saying this, but probably one of the world's best. So easy and intuitive to use for bookkeeping purposes when it comes to reconciliating transactions, cutting them off. Then obviously from a GST perspective, making that process so much quicker versus other softwares in the market. And then from an invoicing perspective, really integrating and making that a streamlined process. And then what they do is then they team up with Figured to build out the farming offering for a farmer. Okay, so what we do is, Andy's mentioned, is we add the production information to it, and we can really make that planning and forecasting experience pretty awesome. And we've added more functionality over the last year. I think we did 150 product releases in the last year. So our ability to be able to serve your needs and provide value for your ever-changing requirements is superior to none. So we really back ourselves. And one thing we're currently working on at the moment is a benchmarking and data play to help you provide you with insights via your accountants to help you get ahead and be the best operation you can possibly be. So that's why we are 2 softwares, because it gives us an ability to be able to speed and provide better service to you guys in the long run and make sure that we future-proof you for your operation. Now, what is the cost? It's pretty much comparable to other solutions in the market, okay? So around that $60 to $65 mark. But what I will say, the difference between Xero and Figured versus other solutions is that we have a product ladder. And all that means is effectively we've got different products depending on the type of farming operation that you are, okay? And what we recommend is having a chat with your accountant or a Figured enablement specialist, just have a chat about what your requirements are. And then they'll match up the products, the right products for you to ensure that you got what you need to crack into the season ahead. How do I get set up and trained? Again, we really have a pretty amazing sort of partner network. Oh, sorry, Andy, I'll just get you to come back there, sorry. Yeah, we've got a pretty powerful network of accountants and enablement specialists across the boards that can really help you get set up and trained. What we're saying is spend the next sort of 3 months ahead of next farming season to work with those guys. And we'll send more details on, some of those enablement specialists following this webinar, so you can have a chat to them. What's really important with the setup phase is just ensuring that you get things like your milk tracker, livestock trackers, all set up properly. You get some comparative data from the previous year in there, so you can actually do some comparison reporting, but also build out plans quickly too. So there's a great value in teaming up with those guys. Let's be open, there will be an investment of your time and money, but it's well worth it to ensure that you get the software set up and understand the core fundamentals of the software to ensure that you can get some value from it next season. And what support do we provide? Well, at Figured, we've got a superb support team globally that can answer your questions under 10 minutes. I reckon that's under 5, but I don't want to throw them under the bus, which I already have. But they are really responsive, and they'll be able to support you with your questions at any time. So you just got to send them a message, as you can see on that pop-up, and they'll respond to you when they can under that 10 minutes. And then feel free to also search for help articles in there too. So the cool thing about that is, often if you just type a query in there, there'll be a search article to support you with that. So next steps, like if you want to get set up and get started, we strongly sort of recommend and advise that you think about getting set up sooner rather than later. So you've got that sort of 3-month window going into the next farming season to ensure that you're set up properly, as I said, and also just making sure that you have the fundamentals to ensure that you know how to use the software ahead of 1st of June after you made balance date for dairy. Your accountant and your Figured enablement specialist can help with this, okay? And as I said, I will send details of Figured enablement specialists that we work with to support you with that. As support with you, we'll subsidise the subscription cost during the setup and training phase. So around about 3 months at 50% for Xero and Figured. T's and C's apply, and we'll outline in the follow-up email around those T's and C's. And also as part of that follow-up, we'll provide some further information to help you make the best informed decision whether you want to go with Xero and Figured ahead. Really, we're really passionate about what we're up to. We believe that we've got a really core functioning software system that's going to really power the dairy industry ahead next season, and we'd love you to jump on the journey. We're here to support you guys and ensure that you can get the best from the software, and including working with our larger partner network across NZ that we work closely with on a day-to-day basis. So on behalf of Andy and I, we'll follow up with FAQs, the questions and answers following the session, and also more information. But on behalf of Andy and I, would just like to say a big thanks for attending today. It's been absolutely heaps of fun, really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys got plenty of value from the session.